Hey, welcome to the Healing She Got Faith show. I am Lily. I am the founder of Healing She Got Faith, and I am the host of the Healing She Got Faith talk show. Healing She Got Faith is an organization that was created for adults who are dealing with grief and or on their self-love journey. During this talk show, we talk about grief, healing, self-love, but overall, we are encouraging you to love you the way you love the world, okay? So we thank you all for tuning in. Hi, happy Monday. Welcome to episode 128. I am Lily. I am the founder and I am the host of the Healing She Got Faith talk show. I'm the director. I do everything here and I'm so happy to have you here with me. If you are new here, welcome. If you are a continuing listener, thank you so much for continuing to come back and being here. This is episode 128. We are in our grief, healing, and holiday series, and today's topic is called Grief Unexplained. So I have a question for you all. Have you ever had a feeling where you just did not know how to explain it? Like, you weren't depressed, but you kind of feel like it. You're not happy, you're just kind of there. Well, if you've ever felt that way, then I have some good news for you. You might be dealing with grief. Grief can be so unexplainable, and in this episode, I just want to get to the nitty-gritty and talk about how grief is unexplainable. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump this episode off with our icebreaker. I'll see you over there. Welcome to the icebreaker segment of the Healing She Got Faith talk show. Here we pull affirmation cards from different affirmation decks. We read them and we say if they resonate with us, why or why not. This is our one and only icebreaker. We do it at conferences, professional developments. We do it on the podcast, obviously. And really, it's just to get us to start talking about ourselves and to get comfortable. We are here to promote having a safe space. And so while you're here with Healing She Got Faith, we want you to feel safe enough to speak about where it is that you are in life. We are your safe space. All right, welcome to episode 128, Icebreaker. All right, so I am still pulling from the Comfort Cards Meditation for Loss by CuddleBuddys. So I have been pulling from this deck of cards for a couple weeks now if you've been keeping up with us. So today's card says, create a quiet, comfy spot in your home to sit and grieve by Morton, LMSW, ACSW. When I created Healing She Got Faith and I wanted to buy a building, it was just for that. I wanted to create a safe space for people to be able to grieve and for people to be able to sit and be present with what they were dealing with. So many times in life, we're just go. We're doing this, we're doing that. Or when we're grieving, we will tend to be busy so we don't feel our grief. I remember one of my friends losing a sibling, and I remember being like, hey, I think you need to sit with your feelings. And the response from my friend was, I don't want to feel. And so I think in grief, a lot of times, sometimes we feel like we don't have the permission. And so sometimes we have to give ourselves that permission. Two, I think it's so unnormal because I think the beautiful thing about human beings is we will persevere even when we don't want to. We are stronger than we think we are. And internally, we know that. Internally, our bodies know that because our bodies will function when we don't necessarily want them to function. That's why sometimes your mind doesn't turn off. That's why sometimes your mind starts to going because your mind doesn't necessarily know when to stop per se. So our bodies, even if our mind and body is not on the same page, our bodies will naturally persevere. That's why when you see people who get into accidents, they don't remember because their mind went into protection mode to protect them from the pain. So our bodies will naturally do that. However, it does take for us to be brave enough to sit with ourselves. That's bravery. Like sometimes we'll be like, I gotta be strong. Well, the strongest thing you can do in this season is sit with yourself. The strongest thing you can do is give yourself that permission to grieve. The strongest thing you can do is to admit that you're hurting. The strongest thing you can do is to allow yourself to grieve. You might have to go to that grief group. You might have to listen to this podcast. You might have to come to a grief healing and holidays event. You might, right? Sometimes that is the brave thing and the strong thing to do. Another brave thing to do is to rest. Take off. I don't care if it's been 10 years. Give yourself that permission to take off. It's okay. I promise you, it's okay. So create a quiet, comfy spot in your home to sit and grieve. Find that safe space. Find that spot. Create it. Give yourself that permission. Your future self will thank you. Your present and current self might be a little bit uncomfortable, but your future self will thank you. And in the long run, if you have kids and you see your kids grieve, if you have a spouse and you see your spouse grieve, if you have siblings and you see your siblings grieve, you would have been brave enough to give yourself so that when you see it in other people, you can be encouraging of them creating their space as well. So yes, create a quiet, comfy spot in your home to sit and grieve. This resonates with me so much because this is literally what I've been doing in my grief journey. This is also what I really encourage everybody else to do. I think this is the premise of what Healing She Got Faith is. So it resonates. I'm a fan. I love it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the topic. I'll see you over there. Welcome to the topic segment of the Healing She Got Faith talk show. In this portion of the episode, we discuss the topic of the day, which is the title of this episode. So we really pride ourselves on talking about grief, healing, being present, and just having an opportunity to be safe enough to be who you are. I hope in this episode you're able to take it with you, and I hope you're able to give yourself permission to heal the way you need to heal. We love you, but as always, love you the way you love the world. Enjoy the topic. Welcome to episode 128's topic of the day. Our topic for today is called Grief Unexplained. So, as always, hey Faithers, happy Monday. Welcome. If you don't already know, which if you're listening to this podcast and you've made it to episode 128, you probably do know, I love grief. I said that in front of over 100 students, ages 9th through 11th grade, and they all looked at me crazy because grief is not something that we tend to celebrate or we tend to love. Grief can be very, very uncomfortable. Grief can be something that is just unexplainable. So when someone says, I love grief, I love to grieve, I just love it, you're probably looking at them side-eye. You are probably looking at them how those kids looked at me. But I love grief because there's so much power in grief. I was listening to a TikTok today and it said that this content creator, she said when she lost her mom, she changed, and a lot of her friends were like, well, you changed. And she talked about how when we are grieving, when we have grief and loss, we tend to change. And also too, grief will open your eyes to who was truly there, who's gonna always be there, and just different things like that. And I always say that in grief, whatever was suppressed comes to light. So whether that's you opening your eyes to how people truly feel about you, whether that's no longer suppressing and hiding what you truly feel, no matter if there was something you were hiding and you just never spoke about, and because you're grieving, it's coming up. There is so much power in that. I wrote it in my first book, Everyone Has a Story. And grief is the one time in our life that we just can't lie about anything. Grief will not allow you to be happy if you're not happy. Like, there's so many times, and I've just learned to accept it about myself, where I just cry. I'm a crier because I've hurt. And for so much of my life, I've kept it inside of me, and I've just withheld it because I've had this notion of, you have to be strong, you have to do this. It's unprofessional to cry. There's so many things that in life, we forget that we're human. Grief is a normal part of life. I want to say that again. Grief is a normal part of life. All of us will grieve. Grief does not only deal with death. Grief can deal with losing a coworker. Grief can deal with transitioning from one position to the next. Grief can deal with a terminal illness. You can grieve if you are now a mother and this is your first child, you can grieve the life you had without children. That's a very real thing. It doesn't make you a bad person. When people get married and they miss their single life, I promise you, you're not a bad person for missing that. So what that you miss it? You're grieving it. It was part of who you were. It was something you had to say goodbye to. It was a loss that you took. When we grieve, okay, let's talk about physical death. So like when my mom died, I completely changed. And part of what I was listening to on TikTok with this content creator, she talked about there's 2 funerals that you're going to go to. You're going to go to the physical funeral of whoever you lost. You're also going to experience the funeral of your old self, because now you're living a life without this person, but you're also living a life where you don't know who you are. So you have to rediscover who you are. You really have to say bye to who you were. When I had that realization, woo, it really sucked, because there were people who just didn't understand. Like, there were people like, you're not fun anymore. You used to laugh a lot. You used to be loud. You're not that person. And I'm not. I changed. And not only does it suck for you, but it also sucks for me too, because like now I'm being rejected by myself, and I'm also being rejected by people that I thought I loved, or that I thought loved me. Ooh, ouch. Yeah, we change in different seasons. Even if we're not talking about grief, let's just say we're just talking about growth. Like, you are not the same person that you were in 21 that you are at 31. I promise you. That 10-year difference is huge. There can be a difference in a year. I used to date this guy. He grieved who I was in high school. And now that I'm older and I understand this, he always, like, we dated probably like my late 20s, but he had knew me from our high school ages. And I remember him being like, well, I just liked when you used to date so-and-so, and I like that person. Like, that person is not who this person is. Like, I'm not dating the person I thought I was dating. And so, like, at that time, I didn't have my frontal lobe fully developed, so I didn't know how to convey this. But if I ever had the chance to go back, which I don't want to, and I actually don't ever want to speak to this person again, but if I could redo something, I would acknowledge the fact that that person was grieving who I used to be at a high school age. I also understand that people tend to get stuck in the age that their trauma hit. And so for that person that I was dating, their trauma hit in high school. So everything that they remembered, all the good times, was from high school. Their adulthood at that point had not been good. Mental health is real. That's a whole nother separate thing. What I'm mostly focusing on is, as an adult, and now I'm past that relationship and I haven't spoke to that person, and with tons of therapy and just tons of realization, and then just accepting people for who they are, I realized that person did not enjoy dating me as an adult, because that person missed the times and moments that we had in high school. That's grief. there's a loss in that. There's a loss. There's the day that you realize you're an adult, there's a loss of childhood. There's a loss of innocence in youth. Like, there's a loss in that, and that can really suck for some people. Like, there's grief. If you've ever experienced like a divorce, there's grief in being married and thinking you're going to spend this time with this person and realizing that we may not ever get back together. This was it. Like, it was a season. If you've ever went through a friendship breakup, you might have changed. That friendship breakup might have changed who you were, because you might have realized that you were being used, or you might have realized you guys outgrew each other. So, and let me say this, it doesn't always have to be negative. Like, sometimes it really is that life just spreads y'all apart. And sometimes that's exactly what it is. The phone call stopped, the texting stopped, the meetup stopped. Like, sometimes there isn't a rhyme or reason. Sometimes it is a negative. Sometimes it's like, damn, like I straight ain't spoke to that person in a year, you know? And we don't know why. You know, sometimes it's like, I didn't even realize a year went by. Life been so crazy. So, that is also grief that we are dealing with. And it changes us. You know, when we go through a breakup, it does change us. If you've ever been through heartbreak, honey, and let me tell you, I have been through a lot of heartbreak. If you've ever been through heartbreak, it can really, really change who you are as a person. Sorry, this bracelet is not working with me today. It can really change who you are if you've ever been through a breakup. If your heart has been broken and you are grieving a relationship, if you had to call off an engagement, if you broke up with somebody after you just had a baby, if you've been with somebody and you just really, really love them and like them and just really love to be around them, it changes you. Anytime I've been through a heartbreak with a man, it has changed me, because I love so hard, and all I desire is love and a partner. And so when things don't work out, because most of my heartbreak has come from just men not being faithful and just men not being honest and men just ghosting me. Like, I don't even know what happened. I don't know if they cheated or what. They just literally just stopped talking to me. Like, there was no rhyme or like, it's like we cool one day and the next day I literally don't hear from them forever. And so, like, there's a heartbreak, and that, you know, there's a shift in who I am that switched me. And I will go through phases where I'm just crying my eyes out, because how could anybody just stop talking to you? How could anybody just stop doing that, right? And as strong and as much as we want to be strong and as much as we want to be like, F them, we are human first, and grief is a very real part of life, and it will change us. It will change us. It is unexplainable. When I say grief unexplained, I am specifically talking about those feelings that we really just don't know what exactly we're feeling. When my mother died, I promise y'all, that first year after she died, I was just here. I had no clue as to what I needed or wanted. I just knew, hear me out, I needed air to breathe. I needed water to stay alive, and sometimes I needed food. Sometimes. I didn't need food all the time, but sometimes I needed food. I went through a year that I don't even remember. Yeah, I was in school. I don't remember. I cannot tell you how I graduated that year. I know I did the assignments because I got the grades. My GPA was still very high. But ask me what those assignments were about. Yeah, I was in community social work program. So that means I was out and about doing research, doing resources. Baby, when, where, why? Couldn't tell you. I was literally just living, just doing what I had to do. There was nothing there. I also had went through a major breakup, that man that I was talking about earlier, where he missed the high school me. I went through a breakup. So not only did I have to grieve my mother's death, I had to grieve this toxic relationship that, like, I should have left a long time ago, but that was a whole nother therapy session for a whole nother topic. But, like, it just really sucked that at my lowest, as my partner, you decided that that was when you were going to be a complete asswipe. And you were going to show me. And the day that I realized, I should have been left you, and I'm going to choose my peace over arguing with you, he made my life a living hell because I no longer would give him the energy. So because he knew emotionally I was detached, he made sure that whatever he could make difficult for me, he would. And that was something else, because I'm like, dang, you actually hate me. You actually hate me. So now I'm not only am I grieving a physical death of one of the biggest people in my lives, but this man who we said we loved each other. We said this, and you're treating me like I'm the worst person in the world. You're treating me like I'm your ops. And that was hurtful. So I got a double whammy here with me, right? And so in that I'm shifting because I'm dealing with multiple heartbreaks at one time, on top of who the hell am I? What is even happening? I gotta go to work. I gotta go to practicum. I gotta go to school. I gotta go to class. I was living in an apartment at that time with my best friend and her mom, and I gotta do all this. Like, it changes you, and it's so unexplainable. There were days where I really couldn't tell you who and what I was. Then I hit a season where I wasn't quite depressed, but I wasn't happy. But like, nothing made me smile, but I didn't necessarily hate life either. Like, it was just unexplainable. And so in grief, we go through different phases and seasons of what exactly grief is doing to us. And that's why in our last episode, when the card we picked talked about it's a very individualized experience, it is so individualized. And I think the moment that we realize it and we get encouraged about, like, grief is individualized, like, there's resources and there's things in place, like Healing She Got Faith is one of those resources that I hope goes down in history for grief. But like, there's different things in places like grief groups, grief activities, grief spaces that are specifically created for grievers, because we don't necessarily have an answer to what exactly are we experiencing and feeling. And so if you are in a moment of grief where you really just don't know, I just encourage you to embrace that. Sit in that moment. It is unexplainable. And I'm so sorry that you have to go through that. I'm so sorry, because that really sucks. I'll never forget, I was at this women's empowerment event, and this author came. She was one of the very first authors I ever met, and she was really close to the person who was over this conference. And she had just told me, like, yeah, my mother just died. And she just was like, but I had made a commitment to come here and speak and support, and I think I need to be around positive women anyway after losing my mom. And I just remember, like, the whole experience, she just had this blank look on her face. We congratulated her on her book. We prayed over her. We did so much stuff. And I just remember her, she was literally just there, like her body was just there. Years later, I'm talking about like 5-6 years later, I see her. It's at a similar event, but it's with a chosen few with the same person who hosted the conference. Cool. So I see her and I recognize her, and I'm like, oh, like, I met you at blah, blah, blah. She was like, I was so gone that day. I literally just showed up because I had no idea what else to do. I was hurting so bad, and I knew I could be around positive people, but I knew I didn't have to, like, necessarily be present. Like, my physical could be there, but I knew I was safe enough just to be. I knew you all would accept me for who I was, versus if I go to work, they're going to expect something. If I go to my family, they're probably going to expect something. If I got a spouse, they're probably going to expect something. That was so powerful, because years later, we recognized each other, and she told me, she was like, I was so out of it, but I knew I needed to go to a safe space. It was unexplainable. What she was experiencing was unexplainable. Sometimes grief is unexplained. And I want to encourage you today, you don't always have to have an explanation for grief. Sometimes you can literally just sit and be like, I think I'm grieving. I think I'm having a moment. I don't know what I'm going through, but I know I'm going through a lot. I know there's a lot going on up here, but nothing at all. The way my brain works, I swear it's a screensaver. Like, it do be a lot going up here, but it's a screensaver. It's on, but it's just, there's nothing processing. And that's okay. I struggle a lot with grief brain. I struggle a lot with short-term memory loss. I struggle a lot with like conveying how I truly feel. Surprise, surprise, I have a podcast, I'm a speaker, but I do. I struggle a lot with like communicating what exactly is coming out. The day I'm recording this is National Children's Grief Awareness Day. And last week was our episode for dedicated to that day, but I'm actually recording on this day. I got my t-shirt on. But when I was 15 and I lost my dad, I was in high school. I didn't know what to feel. I honestly did not grieve or understand the death of my father until my mom died 11 years later, which is absolutely crazy. Absolutely. Like, it is crazy. We just have to learn. I'm an advocate for this. We have to educate and advocate about grief. We have to know as adults how to handle grief. We also have to learn and expect the very human experience that we are all going to experience, because the grief is a very human life experience. So I just want to encourage anybody here today, anybody that can hear this, anybody under the sound of my voice, like, I want you to know that grief is unexplainable. It does not make sense all the time. There are resources, and to be honest, we can have 1,000 resources for you, but if you're in one of those unexplainable moments, sometimes none of that matters. Sometimes you literally just have to sit and be present. Going back to our card, sometimes and I don't mean present with other people, I mean present with your grief. Find those safe spaces. Create that safe space in your home. Create a space where you just sit and grieve. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to acknowledge everything you're going through. And I encourage you to. You learn your new normal. As I said at the beginning of the episode, as humans, we are much stronger than we think and give ourselves credit for, and we persevere through a lot. And I know you can. And I know you will, even when you don't want to, because that's how we operate as humans. And also give yourself permission to grieve. And also give yourself, or let yourself know that it's okay if it's unexplainable. Promise you it's okay. I promise you. My one of my bosses said that. She was like, one thing Lisa gonna do is she gonna promise you. I promise you it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. I love you, but as always, love you the way you love the world. And we are going to end on our affirmation. I'll see you over there. All right, so you are now about to hear our affirmation. I want to give you an affirmation to carry for the week. So from Monday to Monday, you at least have an affirmation that you are repeating to yourself every day. She got faith. Listen, we want to give you affirmation to get through the week. So enjoy. All right, welcome to episode 128's affirmation. If you made it this far, thank you. I really appreciate you. All right, so episode 128's affirmation is, I know that grief is a very human experience, and I know I'm allowed to sit in it. This is giving yourself permission to grieve and to acknowledge everything that you've been through. You have the full permission and capacity to sit in your grief. And I want you to allow yourself that. I want you to allow yourself to feel. I want you to heal. I want you to allow yourself to be in a space where you can feel everything and not hide it. So I want you to create that space. I want to encourage you to create that space and to find that space. So the affirmation is, I know that grief is a very human experience, and I know I am allowed to sit in it. I love it. I love you guys so much. And I really hope that you are taking a lot from this grief healing and series, grief healing and holiday series. I love you, but as always, love you the way you love the world. And I will catch y'all next time. Bye, guys. All right, we have came to the end of our show. I really appreciate you for listening and sticking with us and coming every Monday at 3 p.m. Central to hang out with us. I appreciate you guys. I can't thank you enough to my listeners, followers, everybody, friends, family who loves and believes in everything that I'm doing. I really, really thank you from the bottom of my heart. I love you, but I always want you to remember to love you the way you love the world. And I'll catch you next Monday. Bye, guys.